From Southern Maryland's weather leader, this is a JB Weather Alert.
Good Saturday morning, and I'm forecaster John Bordash with you back in the JB Weather Center this morning, sitting just about 8 a.m., taking a look at what is setting up to be a very active weekend across the region. Cold air moved into the area last night, with many of us waking up to temperatures in the teens and wind chills down near zero. At the same time, the system that's going to become our winter storm is bringing widespread snow, sleet, and freezing rain to much of the center part of the country and the Mid-South, and we will begin to see all of this track into our region as we head over the next 24 to 36 hours. Let's take you right into Cedar Point Federal Credit Union Future View to get a timing on when we can start to see impacts move into the region. Our latest modeling shows that snow is likely to begin to move into the area as we approach midnight tonight. As we take a look at things and stop them about 2, 3 in the morning, snow has become widespread, and we're going to start to see pockets of more moderate snow develop across southern communities. Our model here is a little bit colder than some of the other models that we've been looking at, and we've seen a little bit of a flip-flop action here, so we're going to have to monitor the latest trends and really compare what we're actually seeing to what our computer guidance is showing us. But our modeling here does show that snow is widespread as you begin to wake up by 6 or 7 in the morning, with areas of more heavy snow developing down to the south. That would be that thump of snow that I'm talking about, that thump of heavy snow where you could be ripping rates upwards of about 1 inch an hour, potentially more. We will see, look at this, by about 9, 10 o'clock, potentially some heavy snow really setting up across southern zones, but I would caution you that I think those darkest blues might also be representing some sleet beginning to mix in. Nevertheless, you will see that freezing rain there shown by that pink color really moves to the north as we head towards the lunch hour into the afternoon, with sleet and freezing rain becoming widespread for areas along and southeast of I-95. That snow begins to go over to sleet and freezing rain as well to the north and west, and that becomes widespread by the evening hours on Sunday. And one thing that we're going to continue to watch are the surface temperatures. The saving grace potentially, and this does remain as a possibility out there, is that 32-degree line here at the surface may be able to sneak back to the west just far enough that coastal areas in southern Maryland may be able to switch from freezing rain to plain rain. That is what our model shows here, and if you were to really look through parts of Calvert and St. Mary's counties, you would see some areas of green there represented, and that actually, really starts to potentially bring down that ice threat. I caution you, though, that in my experience, this cold air at the surface tends to hang on a little bit longer than we expect in these kinds of a setup. Nevertheless, we will begin to see precipitation really begin to break apart as we head towards midnight Sunday night going into Monday morning. As we take a look at things this morning, we do have winter storm warnings in effect across the region. They start at about 10 p.m. tonight, running through 4 a.m. on Monday. Anywhere from half a foot to a foot of snow is likely through much of the region, with up to a foot and a half possible north of the state line. We're still holding with this second call, and we'll see if any updates need to be made today, but we are still going to be looking at a prolonged icing event south and east of I-95 after that thump of snow. I want to reiterate, I think everybody sees snow because we're going to be looking at everybody starting as with an atmosphere that is below 32. But we're going to start to see a growing warm pocket aloft, and how big that warm pocket is will determine it when you go over to sleet and then eventually to freezing rain. It will be important to monitor those surface temperatures as well. If you're able to get any surface temperatures up over 32 degrees, you may be able to go over to a period of rain. But I caution you, even if it is just a pure rain, not a freezing rain, because you're sitting at 34, 35 degrees, that will quickly refreeze Monday as we see cold air really work back into the region. The difference between freezing rain and sleet. This analogy one of my friends uses, and I think it's a really good analogy to use here. Think of a donut almost. This is something I would use with my students in the classroom. If we're thinking of what is freezing rain, it really is that glaze of ice that is going to stick and cling to everything. And that is what can weigh down branches and power lines. Meanwhile, sleet is more like an ice pellet. Think of sprinkles on top of a donut. It will make travel conditions a little bit worse because you kind of expect, ice when you're freezing rain, you're looking for black ice. But with sleet, it almost appears sometimes as snow, but you cannot get any traction because it's an ice pellet that is pinged off onto the ground and will be laying on top of that snow. When we talk about snow, we're still on track to see about 8 to 14 inches across far northwestern communities in the Piedmont region, thinking of areas along I-81 north and west. We're looking 5 to 10 from I-95 up to about the state line. That is where the mix will occur later, and you should be able to get a few hours of that thumping snow. 4 to 8 inches likely from I-95 down to the south and east, with lower amounts across the as you head towards the Atlantic beaches. One thing I want to reiterate is that everybody will see at least a few hours of thumping snow, and if you can get an inch an hour rate for about 4 hours, you could very quickly get to that 4-inch amount. So even if that transition to snow or from snow to sleet and freezing rain is delayed by about an hour or two, you could potentially add 1 or 2 more inches of snow. That is something that we will need to watch in the meantime, but I think as a baseline, this is a good forecast on which to operate. That sleet will be a threat primarily along I-95 and especially across northern Virginia, where you could see upwards of 2 inches plus worth of sleet or ice pellets accumulate on top of that snow. I think many of us are looking at a 1 to 2 inch sleet event, though, as we continue to track things as they warm up throughout the day. That updated ice call continues to focus the highest icing concerns just southeast of I-95. You will notice that southern parts of Calvert County and southern parts of St. Mary's County may be only looking at about a quarter of an inch of ice instead of maybe as much as a third to half an inch of ice. So that could be some good news. But still, we're looking widespread impacts from ice across the region south of the state line. It is once you start to approach a tenth of an inch of ice that you start seeing scattered power outages. You're looking at those slick conditions on sidewalks and roadways. And once you get up over a quarter inch up to a half inch of ice, that is what we would definitely consider an ice storm. That's where you're looking at more widespread power outages. Those down trees become an issue, and it's going to be very difficult to try to travel. If we're thinking about an ice storm, things that you should be getting ready for today is making sure that any loose branches or flimsy branches around your home or around power lines are removed. Maybe focus more on the home than the power lines, but you want to make sure that there isn't a risk of any falling debris onto your home. You want to make sure that your devices are charged, have power blocks ready to go, and be ready for potentially a prolonged outage situation. If we were to start to culminate all this information, because I know it's a lot, let's take a look at the impact forecast. This takes a while to make, but I do think it does offer good insight into what I'm expecting. Southeast of I-95, you'll look at that, those impacts really increase as we approach about 2, 3, 4 in the morning on Sunday with that initial thump of snow. Notice that those snow impacts, though, decrease as you head towards mid to late morning as that sleet begins and then that focus on the ice glaze. Temperatures will be hovering in the teens to 20s early on, eventually warming close to freezing, and we'll see just how much above freezing southeastern areas can get. I will be watching these winds. If you have wind gusts upwards of 30 or 25 to 30 miles per hour with an ice glaze, you're going to be looking at power outages, so that is something I would prepare for. Travel impacts will be high. I would not expect to be going anywhere on Sunday, and these impacts will linger into Monday, and that will be the exact same case north and west of I-95 as well. So we're really going to be looking at those highest impacts from about 6 a.m. through about 9 p.m. on Sunday as we begin to see temperatures warm a little bit and we continue to look at that snow, sleet, and freezing rain mix take a hold onto the region. Impacts will linger into the week. We have temperatures that will not get back above freezing for the rest of the month. So I would definitely keep that in mind as you begin these preparations and as we see snow, sleet, and freezing rain move into the region late tonight. Stay with JB Weather throughout your Saturday. I'll be here in the Weather Center continuing to keep you updated, and we will have live nonstop coverage throughout this winter storm to keep you and your family safe and one step ahead of it. In the meantime, I'm forecaster John Bordash. Thank you for joining me this morning, and please stay tuned to JB Weather for the latest.
Check the forecast anytime online at jbweather.net.